Interviews can be intimidating. There are a lot of potential questions that could be asked of you. In an effort to prepare yourself, you might be thinking, what are all the questions I could be asked? Maybe I need to have an answer memorized for all of them. Fact of the matter is, the list of questions is virtually limitless. So if you're thinking that studying all these questions and memorizing answers is really worth your time, the answer is no. Instead, do what I'm about to recommend in this video. This is the single most powerful interview strategy that I tell everyone that's about to go into an interview. And make sure to stay till the very end because I'm gonna give a detailed sample response to a hypothetical question using this strategy. So let's get to it. In any interview, you'll generally get three kinds of questions, which are behavioral, how you've handled certain situations in the past. Situational, how you would handle hypothetical situations. Competency, which is an assessment of your skills and knowledge. Now these are general categories, and while this strategy is most useful for the first type, the behavioral questions, it's still actually useful across the board. Now to summarize the strategy, it's this. Develop your 3 best career stories. There's a lot of power in the ability to tell a compelling story, and that's really no different in an interview setting. So take out a notepad and identify your 3 defining moments in your career and start writing the stories behind those moments. And in the context of how you would answer interview questions, you can use the STAR format, which stands for situation, task, action, and result. Now, when you think of defining moment, that sounds a little bit more dramatic than it actually is. Now, really, this is any moment where you've experienced incredible success, or in some cases, you experienced major failure, and how did you go about handling that and overcoming it? And in any of those stories, there should be a very important lesson that stuck with you. So that's the short of it. Those are the stories you're trying to identify from your past experience. Now, as you're deciding on which moments you should really pull from, try to find ones that include some, or even better, all of the following elements. Conflict resolution. Anytime you had a disagreement with someone that you've had to resolve, and how you resolved it. Process. This can take the form of simply for yourself understanding the logical process you went through to accomplish a goal and being able to articulate that process in an interview or as you're describing it to someone. Influence. The time you had to persuade someone to take an action, whether it was a peer or even managers, people that you don't have direct authority over. Leadership. Now this can certainly tie into influence, but consider this more in the context of how you organized groups of people to accomplish a task. How did you communicate and motivate everyone to move in the same direction? Data. As it relates to an outcome, what numbers can you incorporate to the story to add substance? For example, you managed a $5 million business and it grew by 20%. Obviously, you want to explain how, but having data that you can point to and defend will make a more impactful story, especially in an interview setting. Now, of course, not all your stories are going to have all those elements, but certainly the more the better. Now, what's the point of having these stories? The point is you want to know these stories so well that you can tell it to a friend or colleague without having to struggle to remember the details. And as you're telling those stories, if the other person has a question, you'll immediately know the answer. You're not going to have to think twice about it. When you know a story that well, you come across as confident and assured. And that's what you want to convey in an interview. But it's not only for that reason. It's also because there are just so many questions you could potentially get in an interview. These stories are meant to be a small menu from which you can choose different parts of every story to answer certain questions. For example, if someone asked you, tell me about a time you used data to influence someone to take an action. You would think about your 3 stories, and maybe story A and story B could help sufficiently answer that question. So just pick one of those stories, and whatever the question is asking for, make sure to emphasize the parts of that story that help answer that question. And just to give an example, I'll maybe use an example from my own personal experience where a lot of my roles have been data oriented. There's a lot of influencing that needs to happen. I would say something along the lines of, in a previous role, I used data to understand market seasonality, and when I needed to talk to supply chain to convince convince them that we're going to experience a really high demand in the months of July and August, I had our own internal sales data as well as third-party market data to support the conclusions that I had around what kind of volumes we could expect to sell. If I don't have the product in time for when the market is ready to buy, I'm gonna lose out on the market. So I have to convince this team to take potentially a risk in buying all this product and being able to stock it here so that I can be better prepared to actually sell. In that case, that's using the data that I had at my disposal to influence another organization to take a course of action. Now, what about situational and competency-based questions? The stories here will serve as foundations for how you think logically. One situational question might be, how would you go about forecasting for sales for the upcoming year, knowing that we have a new product launching? Now, presumably you're interviewing for a role where you have some level of experience or maybe education, and at least one of the stories has the elements that the question is alluding to. And then you can respond in a way that logically walks through the question based on your prior experiences. In this case, what kind of considerations should you make when forecasting sales based on your experience, or predicting the sales performance of a new product? And as you're articulating your answer, you can always allude to your experiences. Here's how a hypothetical answer might sound. Mr. or Mrs. Hiring Manager, I experienced a similar situation in my prior role where we did launch a new product. And based on that, we would want to understand the market demand based on our own internal sales data, as well as third-party sales data on the category of this product. We'd also recognize that there is seasonality when it comes to this product, so timing of this product launch matters, but we would take current sales of our current product and extrapolate that out, make future adjustments based on some assumed market dynamics, list out some other assumptions about the value of the product and how much we would be able to charge for it in the market, and also consider the launch of the new product, how that might impact the sales of the old product. And for that matter, are we keeping the old product around? We then arrive at an estimate that accounts for current run rate projections as well as the future estimated volume of the product that we would be launching. And scene. Now, that's oversimplified, and you can certainly add more considerations in there, but at the same time, you do want to be concise, because concise means confidence. When you ramble on, that's often an indication that you don't know what you're talking about well enough, and you try to fill that uncertainty that you have with more words. So keep it short, and you also want to leave room for the interviewer to inquire further, and then you can of course add more detail. So when you're prepping for your next interview, think about those 3 stories. Do they have all the important elements that I mentioned earlier? As you think about that, write out all the details, and then tell the story out loud, either in front of a mirror or to somebody that's willing to listen. When you know your experiences well enough that you can articulate them without stumbling or having to think really hard to remember, you'll be extremely well equipped to answer just about any questions that might come your way. But this is all assuming you get the interview in the first place. And if you're not yet at that point, make sure to check out my other video where I talk about how to find your next job. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you around.